but let's just say I have a new stance and a new perspective on the snowpack and little colder temperatures and what that really does for the yearly, green grass and green trees.
Sure.
Very elemental and kind of primal things have been on my mind more than just sort of surface everyday stuff. So we had to pull up stakes and get the family cross country. So just moved in June, and that's a tricky decision and a lot of factors in there. And those sort of primal thoughts and explorations are what are really behind the whole record and the themes on the record.
Well, being from upstate New York originally, I can relate to the climate considerations there and the variations of degrees of normalcy that you refer to. I can understand that. I got kind of spoiled by spending 30 years in the Southern California area, so I have my normalcy is really weird, but then I've been accused of being weird anyway. But I do see where this played into the creation of this song. And how do you translate that change, the development, what you went through? How do you translate that into the music in this album?
Well, it really comes through in the lyrics, and I would say it was the easiest album to write because the emotions were so high, and I was just living in such a constant state of decision making that all these kind of thoughts and lyrics were pouring out constantly. So it isn't as much necessarily in the music, although the music is sort of probably a little more heightened and passionate as a result. But yeah, all of the lyrics really deal with the various facets of, the month by month sort of PTSD that one goes through in a wildfire season. So there's a song called Year at a Glance, which is literally a calendar exploration of each month and sort of how you get sort of numb to it in January and February when everything's sort of green and everything seems nice, and California sort of woos you back, and you're like, oh, I can't stay mad at you. And then things start to dry out a little bit and get a little more scary as September and October approach, and then you go through it again, and you wonder, what were you thinking, and how did you get fooled into going through that sort of traumatic, fearful stuff again. So all my California friends are dealing with it on one level or another, and I was in various stages of denial for a number of years and just couldn't live that way anymore. So
I understand, and I think you summed it up very well in a quote of yours, or at least it was attributed to you, and you said something to the effect that that one song in particular, it took 20 years to germinate and 1 hour to write. And I think that sums up pretty much what you've been saying. There's a lot in there. It's a compendium of a lot that happened to you, that you went through, and it was a relatively easy read for you to sit down and come up with this music. And you listen to the album, and I think the listeners will grasp that right off the top. Jon BonJovial, I know you'd like to get in here. What you got?
Well, yeah, first of all, Scott, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on with us. And, I'm listening to the conversation, and a question has occurred to me that even though you've escaped the 415 and you're, living in Minnesota now, which, of course, Minnesota is an absolutely magnificently beautiful state, but having lived in California for, I'm going to guess, quite a few years, and California, of course, particularly the Bay Area and also like East LA, are heavy influencers on music. And in listening to Rise, I'm hearing some influence there from, and I can't put my finger on it, but an influence of stuff that would have occurred in the 60s or 70s. And so I want to know, what did San Francisco / Oakland / San Jose, East Los Angeles, which I know is a little bit south, what kind of influence did that have on the music that you have written over the years, and how has that influence gotten you to the point where you are today?
What a great question. Thank you. You could say I was a giant kind of California sunshine pop fan before I ever moved there. In fact, Minnesota has a long tradition of being a very Beatles-friendly town as far as, melody and harmony and that kind of thing. So that was ingrained in me from an early age, and that translated well to the kind of sunshiny Beach Boys harmonies and melodies that were waiting for me on the West Coast. But you're absolutely right. I did pick up a few other tricks while I was out there. You mentioned East Los Angeles. Rise itself has the baritone saxophone Steve Berlin from the band Los Lobos, who
I'm so hoping you were going to say that.
Yeah, well, you
were going to say that.
You teed me up beautifully, so I could have really whiffed on that one, but I didn't. Yeah, and he was a friend of a friend, and these guys are they're excited to work. They're a phone call away oftentimes, or a DM message away. So we've literally never met, but he, like I said, is a friend of a friend. And during the pandemic, these guys couldn't tour and they couldn't earn money. So the likelihood of getting a collaboration from somebody who may otherwise be too busy touring, it became a lot easier and more appealing. So everybody very quickly pivoted and got their home recording chops up, to passable levels. And Steve is certainly no slouch in any production role, so he had no ramping up to do. But it was just a few quick emails back and forth to get him the track and get him on the record. So textures like his, there's other luminaries who are in SoCal. Pete Thomas, who's actually originally from England, from Elvis Costello's Attractions, legendary drummer, does live in Los Angeles. Flew him up a few years ago to play on a record called Pins and Needles, and we used some of those drum parts for the last track on this record called This Too Shall Pass. So a lot of California talent there, and a lot of it just kind of seeped into the songwriting over the years as well. Of course, the Bay Area psychedelia component is never far from my mind. And so that's just yet another influence that it gave me as a gift.
I was just going to say the fact that you mentioned Los Lobos, which is why I purposely mentioned East LA, because they've always been, I guess for lack of better words, one of my bucket list bands, and I've been a fan of theirs since the late '70s, and finally about 5 years ago, got to see them, and they were wonderful. They do not disappoint.
I haven't had the chance to see them myself, but I have heard that of them. And you guys kind of set me up moving right along into where I wanted to go next. And that, Scott, was the instrumentation. Now, I know you play most of the instruments yourself, which is a credit to your versatility and talent. And you've layered so many instruments in here. Some of the ones that really intrigued me were the nylon string guitar, your vintage Roland Sith 12-string guitar, and African tongue drum.
Yeah, that is a very fun story. My friends Harris and Nicole just happened to have this African tongue drum. It basically looks like a wooden box with various cutout slats of the wood in the top, and they're cut out, and each little, it really looks like little wooden tongues cut out of the side of this box. And each one is tuned to a different note, and there's maybe 12 or 11 total wooden tongues, if you will, and you hit it with a mallet. So it's not unlike a marimba, but it really does just look like a wooden box. It's hollow. I was over at their house. I saw this incredibly strange instrument, picked up the mallets, and immediately played the pattern that is in the song Twice in a Lifetime, which is track 2 after Rise, and was compelled by the instrument and by the pattern that kind of came out, and said, hey, can I borrow this? Borrowed it for a while, brought it home, and recorded my part, and then just started layering a lot of the instruments you mentioned over the track. That particular song was incredibly hard to finish because the layout of the instrument dictated that it was an 11/4 time signature, which I'm as big of a Frank Zappa fan as the next guy, but it's an incredibly hard meter to write lyrics to.
Yeah, it's not one of the easiest.
No, so I had a dickens of a time trying to sing over the top of it, and meanwhile I was kind of going back through a big Talking Heads phase, which is probably second only to the Beatles in my kind of upbringing. So I got interested in trying a sort of David Byrne-esque talking part, which I tried, and it was, again, during this time period where we were desperately trying to sell our house in California and buy one in Minnesota, and I decided to just do sort of a manifestation wish list of the life I wanted to create for myself out here, and I just literally almost recited a list of real estate terminology and sort of climate terminology, the almost suburban ideal of what I wanted to get back to, and pretty much all of it came true. In fact, some of the things were even bettered. And I ended up calling it Twice in a Lifetime because it's, of course, a play on their famous Once in a Lifetime song, which really sort of takes a jaundiced view at sort of suburban conformity, post-war conformity. But I'll tell you what, escaping forest fires and things like that, a little suburban conformity in a northern state sounded just about right to me. So it was almost sort of inverting that on its head. So it's sort of an inversion of the lyrics of that song as well.
Before we let you go, I want to give you a chance to tell the folks how they can find you, find your music online, and, of course, keep track of what you're doing, and, most importantly, buy your music, too.
Awesome. Thank you. So you can just search for Scott Gagner, and it's just spelled Gagner. It's like Wagner with a G. The record's called Blood Moon, one word, and you can find it on any streaming platform you want. There's CDs available at my website, which is scottgagner.com. It's on Bandcamp, and there's videos on YouTube. Literally anywhere you want to go, Spotify. In fact, on all of those services, you will find 4 other records. So this is my 5th total. So there's a lot of stuff to check out.
Okay, we thank you very much. I want to remind you that we, in turn, have amongst our plethora of social media pages, there's one on Facebook, the David Bowers Awards Group's music page. And if you go there, it is specifically for guests on the show and other indie musicians to post their releases, their new traveling news, whatever you want to share with your fans. You can post it there. It's free. You do not need to send a press release. You can post it directly to that page, and we, in turn, will take it and post it to our other social media pages. Feel free to use it because that's what it's there for.
Appreciate that. That's great.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you coming and spending time with us. We will be following you. Please do stay in touch because you're now part of our family, and we want to keep in touch with you and know what's going on. Ladies and gentlemen, his name is Scott Gagner. The album is Blood Moon, and this is a track called Year at a Glance.
Can't